I am coming from a resident, a standpoint, the viewpoint of a resident. I see that while there is certainly a need for the police to be actively involved in the community and to enforce its laws, I also see that there are a lot of abuses. I think the large majority of our community, of our residents, wouldn't necessarily, those who complain, would not necessarily have a problem with police and the job they have to do, because they clearly understand that there's a job that needs to be done. And and who better equipped to do that job? But there needs to remain the human side of it all. And there needs to remain respect from the police to the citizens and the residents of our areas. The large majority of the complaints I personally hear, being a criminal attorney, is not really from the fact that they're enforcing the laws, but the way they go about doing the job. The fact that many times the police demean people as human beings. They're not respectful in the way that they deal with people and individuals. And some of them outright engage in illegal activities. Now, as a defense attorney, as long as they continue to engage in illegal activities, they just make my job easier. Now, what does that do? That actually makes things worse for our city and our community at large, because they make my job easier, but they make it more difficult to, to put an end to the lawlessness and that we currently have to deal with.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to follow this question up. It's probably an agreed upon fact that in certain neighborhoods in the 10th district or perhaps throughout the 10th district, there is some lack of confidence in the Baltimore City Police Department. How would you help rebuild citizens' confidence in the police department? And I guess Mr. Marker, will start with you.
I think that's what I addressed in my previous response, that we need to support our police, we need to thank them for doing good work, but when there is a problem or the perception of a problem, we need to have it addressed and discussed and talked about. And people need to feel safe and confident in raising those sort of complaints. And that's, I'll be available to talk to individuals, and particularly if I'm hearing repetitively in an area, working with the community leaders to try to do that. I also am looking forward to being involved with the schools to some extent, as much as possible, and hopefully that will, and particularly more likely the high school. It's exciting what's happening with high schools in the district now, and hopefully building up some level of trust that way, that here's somebody in government who we know he's come around a number of times, and here's what's happening to us on the streets and everything. So getting communications out there and talking and bringing the major to the table if necessary, to be able to hire up. And as I indicated, as long as Bielfeld is up on the top, he's somebody who knows me. And if I needed to call him, I would expect to get a response and be able to sit down.
Ms. White?
I think our police need to be accountable for their actions. First, they need to obey the laws themselves, and then they need to be held accountable for the way they treat people and the way they execute in the execution of their duties. That's what I strongly believe. They need to be held accountable to the public and to their superiors. Now, there is a internal affairs division of the police department. You can always report any concerns you have to the internal affairs division. There's also a investigative unit of the state's attorney's office recently headed up by Janice Bledsoe, who takes her job very seriously and is very active in investigating complaints against police officers engaged in wrongful conduct. I think that when we hold them accountable to the public that they serve, as well as protect, then I think that we can restore public confidence in them that way. We need to see the officers not only care about the laws that they enforce, but the people that they are charged with protecting as well.
And Mr. Van Babel.
Sure. We're in the process of hiring 350 new officers in Baltimore City, which I would much rather see 150 great officers than 350 standard officers. Again, going back to what I mentioned in my opening statement, everything revolves around, and I think we've all stated this, at some point tonight, accountability. You have to have standards in place so that whether it's people working, in city services, people working for the police department, the fire department, we have to have higher standards if we want better results. If we want higher results, we can't expect to go out and just maintain the status quo and get great results. So, I'd rather see maybe we pay a little more and get a better quality police officer that is going to do a better job and have more respect. If they're getting paid a little more, one of the things, maybe on the weekend or on the night that they have off, they can go around the community and meet the residents. That's something that you really don't see happen, at least I don't see happen all that often. In Pigtown, we're doing the cleanups. We'll see them driving around, but how much time for engaging the public do you have when you're in your car? I don't expect them to be walking around all the time while they're on duty, but if they're off duty to forge those relationships with the community, that would be a great opportunity. The officer-friendly program, I think, that used to exist within the school system, having police officers go into the school system, introducing them to kids and forging a relationship within the neighborhoods that they serve. These are all things that I think, and Erica mentioned that human relationship, just going out there and not necessarily being a police officer, but being someone that cares about the community you're representing and meeting the people that you're serving. Those things combined with community relations and community organizations, I think, will provide for better policing and better law enforcement in Baltimore City.
Thank you. So Ms. White, we'll start with you and move down the line. The questioner wants to know, how will you crack down on predatory towing companies? For example, Quick Response Towing is a company that preys on residents of Violetville and Oakley Village.
Predatory towing companies, that's a nemesis to us all. They tend to come around 10 minutes to 4 and park downtown and wait until 4 o'clock. And at 4 o'clock on the dot, your vehicle is tied up. I would introduce legislation that would require them to wait until after 4 o'clock. That's a city ordinance. I think we can handle it that way. You have to wait until 4 o'clock. If you come down, there's no, the regular, actually, I think what we already have is no stopping laws. And what they'll do is they'll come around, and they'll double park. A lot of times I see them double park right downtown. And I think that if parking enforcement were to enforce the regular laws, that might stop the tow trucks from doing it. But we could also introduce ordinances, legislation that would require them to at least wait until 4 o'clock before they show up.
Mr. Van Babel?
I've definitely fallen victim to that on numerous occasions, predominantly downtown, but also in my neighborhood. I've spoken to some residents in Violetville also that have had this incident occur. Like Erica said, I think legislation, the one thing that hurts people the most, especially business owners, is hitting them in their wallet. So if you can have legislation where, 4:15, you can't begin towing until then in business districts, and then in residential districts, I'm not sure, I haven't really had that many instances of towing outside of downtown Baltimore, but I'll use my street in particular. I live right across from Ravens Stadium, And although there's signs posted, they'll tow. I would love to see something put in place where if you can provide the evidence, you don't have to pay. You know, you get your car back. It'd be great if you get them to pay you for the inconvenience. I don't think that'll ever happen, but you know, if you could, most people nowadays have, you know, a camera on their cell phone or own a camera, and you know, if you were to have some sort of way to document so that you can prove and get your money back rather than going to court. You know, because obviously that's another issue all in itself, is having to go into court. People have to take a day off work. Specifically with parking tickets, you get tickets all the time, you go into work and then you don't end up having to pay them, you get off. And it's a huge drain on our budget, on our time, and on people's livelihoods. But as far as towing specifically goes, I'd like to see it, you know, in business districts, having a time mandated, and then having some sort of procedure put in place where if you can prove that you weren't at fault, that you're able to receive your vehicle without any payment, and if not, then you can take them to court.